Kate Falcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Tarot. It's our Saturday book. This is video number 2 of the Convoluted Universe Book 3, video number 2. And we are starting chapter 5. And if you want to go and cover the videos on part 2, book number 2, they are about 6 months ago. And I can't remember when I did book number 1, but you just scroll through the time, you'll find it. Since I did book 2, we also did Keepers of the Garden and Custodians. So, all right, chapter 5, The Green Planet. She has this subject, Betty, in trance, and she describes floating in space, and she sees a big green planet of moss-like trees. She's walking down a damp forest. The trees form a canopy, so it's dark, and the ground is like shredded bark. She looks at herself and sees she's not human. She's bluish-gray with webbed feet and long spindly legs with webbed hands. There's 3 fingers and a thumb. Very, very skinny. No clothes, and something else that I didn't want to write down. Let's see. Oh, pictures. So that's what she looks like, and that's her hand. Imagine doing a past life regression, and that's what you see. Yikes. So her eyes are big because it's so dark and they have adapted. It's always dusk there. They eat bark, which they mash in their hands and they lick off with their tongue. They absorb water through their skin. She's a female. She lays eggs that are fertilized after they laid. Each group has its own territory. They are starting to ram into each other. There's not... there's a little bit of killing, just a little. It's about domination of space. There's no extremes in temperature, no shelter is needed. They spend their time hunting bark. They need lots and lots of bark. They only live till 3 years. They don't sleep, they just rest. They have the trees there, but they're killing off the trees because they need the bark, and they're not supposed to take it off the trees, but some of them have. Boy, does this sound familiar? And they're suffering from overpopulation. Her male, like there's a male that's, in charge, because isn't there always? Her male won't allow it, and soon it's their area. It's the only territory left with trees. The others die of starvation, but eventually the trees will come back. They just wear out and fade away when they die. And the lesson is about balance of nature. Chapter 6 is The Structure is Not Important. In 2005, she regressed Claire, someone who was a world traveler, an adventurer. She was in a wheelchair, but she didn't let it hold her back. And she wanted a session to explore the reasons why she was in a wheelchair. So in her trance, she found herself suspended over a large city on a crescent bay. She said there was no movement at all. Everything felt like it was made of plastic and copper material. The trees looked artificial. There was a cloud of copper-colored shooting stars in a dark sky. Her body felt skeletal. She had very skinny, long legs, hooves, no clothes. She was made of some sort of filmy plastic stuff. Her hands were very wide. She had 6 fingers and a thumb. Her hair was like straw. Her eyes were eyes, but she had no nose, no ears. She had an opening for a mouth and strange material for skin. No organs. Just a structure, some sort of internal system with circulating blue liquid energy. And she said she gets refueled like a car. There's an opening in her heel for the fuel. She lived in the basement under a building, and she doesn't sleep, she doesn't eat. Her room is a bare space, and it feels like she's hanging in a void. There's an outline of something, a shape outlined in blue dots. She finds herself floating up and out, and she's sucked out into a gray cloud. So Canon has her to move forward into her life, move farther along in her life. She says she now feels like she has a denser body made of 2 layers. The top is more structured plastic. The lower layers touching a bed, and it feels softer. It's tingling in her arms and chest and legs, and then in her head and face. She has a very thin body with 2 arms and 2 legs. 4 legs with 2 hips, 3 arms in each side. I don't understand why there's a discrepancy there. I might have copied it wrong. Her face seems half animal. Her skin is gold. Her legs move fast like a wheel. She lives in a structure in the sky. So when she moves forward into another life, she feels buzzing all over and a sense of being as big as the cosmos. She says, I exist. I am everything. We are all together. She's content to do nothing, but feels a duty to gather experiences so that all can grow and evolve. It felt painful to separate from this beautiful place and to go on to experiences. She becomes a planet, then she becomes a reptilian-like being, and then she becomes a lot of other different things. And Canon brings her back into this lifetime, and she senses being sucked into this life, joyful, but getting tired of variety and variation. Canon asks her, what was the lesson in all these lives? And she said, well, the lesson was that structure doesn't matter. The spirit can inhabit anything. Life can take any form. Everything contains some information from some source, from the same source. Source continually grows and is evolving. We're all moving towards another way of thinking that has no violence, that's harmonious, evolution. Her problems with her legs, it's a reflection of the disharmony around her. She could fix it with internal harmony. And the answer is by dying is how she could fix it. And Canon is kind of shocked by this. And she's told that it's a metaphor. By dying, she means step out of yourself and return with a different viewpoint, and you'll be more aligned and you'll regain feeling in your legs. It's like an overhaul. And you'll be a better speaker, and you'll be able to teach the masses also. So first she'll feel odd and not be able to talk properly, but she has to go to bed, and when she wakes up, she'll begin to get better. I guess this really did happen, but she can't doubt it. She has to believe it's true that it'll happen. And I think she did, if I remember correctly. Chapter 7, The Consciousness of Cells. Canon found recorded old sessions from 1985. And she was listening to them, and this is what some of them were. There was a subject in a trance, and this person said that everything is in a state of healing or destruction. Destruction is natural. It's not a negative thing. Premature destruction of a living entity is to be avoided. So healing is used to assure an appropriate lifespan, but it's not the tragedy that we think it is. Healing occurs as each cell is responsible for its own existence, and it has to maintain its life and its relationship with other cells around it that create organ systems. Cells will become aware. Cells will become aware when there is a dysfunction, and they'll obtain information from the light pool around them. They can tap into the ideal cell as a model for how they should be, and it can tell them how they're going awry, and they get information on healing. It's instantaneous, it's microscopic. They think of this ideal cell, their template kind of, as God, because each cell has its own intellect. Every bit of living matter has consciousness. Cells do. They have the ability to reproduce, to move, to be aware of their surroundings in their own way. And then their intellect can function better than the human intellect functions sometimes. To heal, they have to communicate with the intellect in the cells. We do. We have to get in touch with our own body and ask. This may not be obvious because it has to do with past and future lives. This is a challenge that comes from addressing it and meditating and doing over a long period of time. You don't need to understand the blocks. Just recognize that these are blocks, whatever your issue is, and request that they be dissolved and do visualization. Person-to-person healing, so like reaching out and healing somebody else, even at a distance is possible, but not a real long distance. A healer will get in touch with energy, and it depends on the healer's ability to expand their aura. That determines how far the distance can be. So healers use electrical pathways that surround all of us. What does that sound like? There's an energized force around everybody, a force field around each of us, and it depends on both people being willing to let down their protective barriers. You have to agree to be healed, and the healer being able to generate extra jolts of energy and seek out the problem and remove the blocks. So, not everybody's capable of doing it right away. So for this next part, I warned myself, be cautious saying this out loud. These are not my words. This is part of a session. So let me quickly look at what I wrote. Oh, you can put up barriers to protect yourself from getting sick. Now, this is from the book. These are Dolores Cannon's words. I'm not advocating this as any kind of scientific fact. This is not medical misinformation. This is just what somebody said in a hypnosis session. That people create their own disorders by faults in their energy. And the reality of disease is actually closer to an old belief in energetic possession. Emotional, spiritual, and relationship concerns are really what make us sick. Now, this is what she said. This is not what I'm advocating. So, germs are often scapegoats, is the other thing that she says. But they're a hell of a scapegoat, I'll tell you what. So why is laughter the best medicine? It's because joy creates energy that's healing and brings health. Prolonged sadness can lead to depression and it's bad for you. It's also bad for those around you. Appropriate sorrow as a response to an event is not bad for you. It's appropriate. The repression of it is worse than expressing it. So it's okay to grieve. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be depressed, but it's not okay to dwell on it forever. The natural expression of emotion is good for you, even anger. Blocking them can cause illness. When you die, your spirit leaves your cells, but your cells retain a certain aspect of life. Pieces of humans die at different rates until they disintegrate into other things and become other thing, and that's reincarnation on a cellular level. Our individual cells sense that they are part of a larger body, and as we sense we are part of something greater than ourselves. They don't consider us godlike. They know that they're parts and we are parts of something larger. The larger entity of the planet has a consciousness too. Chapter 8, Everything Has Consciousness. She had a client named Tina, and in 2006, she went into a trance and found herself regressed to a time when she was not on Earth. And she said, I don't have words to describe this. She saw an oval object bigger than a football field of smooth white material floating above, and she went up a ramp into an opening, And there was a city inside with little creatures like industrious ants. They were busy building the city, not really a city, but many rooms, like looking at a cross-section of a dollhouse. They were robotic but alive, very programmed, intent on their job. They were harsh. They had no individuality. I think this is describing her too. They have feelers instead of hands. They manipulate lit up buttons on boxes like typing or piano playing. And this causes some things to happen outside. It's almost like they're neurons in a big brain. Are they mechanical? Is this group consciousness? Is this a hive thing? Then she starts to cry and says, oh, I've been one of them. It's not a happy existence. It's drudgery. There are no real choices. She's one and she feels like she has a hard shell body. She has legs, but they're moved by scooting along, and nobody cares about anybody else in this environment. Nobody understands that these are sentient beings. There's a huge lack of feeling. Nobody knows that they have a consciousness. She thinks they function in the background to keep something alive. And we have, she says, we have shifts, and then we go away and get worked on and cleaned, and they go dormant, and then they work again, and they click into their place like recharging a razor. They deactivate. She says it's hopeless. They can't communicate. They're locked into a repetitive existence. No one knows that they have awareness of any kind. But when Cannon takes her back, she sees that she's created and conscious intentionally. They actually do know that they have, they being, I guess, whoever's in charge, that they have a consciousness. And who's responsible? Light beings who manifest with thought. But they're uncaring. They're very large and powerful. They're physical, but it's an amorphous light shape with large, dark, round eyes, a white thing like a ghost. These little creations are causing something to be mined and obtained by remote control. They're created only to serve. These larger entities are refined but dependent on the physical world. They create these little beings to interface with the physical for them. It's a relentless job with no choices. It's total servitude, no choice, no gratitude, because the larger beings don't realize that these guys, these little things they've created, can feel. So there's no appreciation for what they do. They just sort of look at them as things. These larger creatures are very powerful, and they get what they need, and they're feared all over the universe. They're cold. They have no respect for anything. They're self-centered and clueless. These creatures light buttons by remote control, and they work machines that are collecting a yellow powder that's used for fuel. So the subject goes to the day she dies, and she's happy to die, and something of an organic nature is dispersed, and she disappears. And then the robot part of her is disempowered, and her spirit leaves and is free. She realizes she was once one of the big beings, and she needed to experience the effect that she had as a big being on these little ones. She had many different lives as different beings that were negatively affected by the bigger, colder ones, to learn the law. It's a law of cause and effect. The large beings are 100% unaware of any of this stuff going on. The decision to do these different lives was made with the advice from a group after death, as the large beings are a place of clarity and an understanding of what you need to learn. So Both types of beings, the small, semi-robotic, apparently unfeeling but not really unfeeling little beings, and the large, cold beings who created them. The spirit in each of them has a purpose and is learning from the experience of being in those lives. The lesson is to be nice, to be responsible, to care, not to write anybody or anything off. And there is consciousness in everything. Even manufactured stuff, things, have consciousness. You have to be in harmony with the consciousness in everything. The ancients knew this. Consciousness pervades all. It's the only substance. It's the hardest thing to hear. You have no respect because everything has conscience. Technology has consciousness. This is really scary. And you need to appreciate your stuff. Once a thing is created, it has consciousness, so we should acknowledge it. Thank you, book. Seriously. So we always create, and with every thought and word and action, we create. We put energy out there, and energy creates matter. A group ritual can focus intent and create a greater reality. So when you speak casually, the effect is casual. It's okay to joke, you know. Every time you open your mouth, you're not creating chaos and havoc. But when you speak with intent to affect a greater thing, you need to be conscious of that. It's cause and effect. You have to speak and act with awareness. But it's about intent. It's okay to be snarky and lighthearted and, you know, make jokes and say things on a sarcastic level because you don't intend harm. It's more venting. But when you're really emotional, you have an emotional investment in something, be careful of what you say because you have intention behind it. She has a new subject in a trance. So this is a little, chopped up because she's collating old stuff. This new person is in Atlantis. They did experiments with DNA, and they took them too far to the destruction of the culture. They misused the laws of nature. One experiment replaced the organs over time with crystals, and then people were used to generate energy. That's just horrifying. They were used as a weapon, perhaps. That's the question. And this woman's death was because of energy misuse. She was exploded. A woman named Marie, in a trance, says she feels like she's got a metal rod in her right arm. The bone was replaced, and realizes that her right arm is entirely artificial. She's an experimental subject in a laboratory. Scientists are making her arm to be a weapon, so they're creating like super weapons out of people. She was kidnapped to fight in an arena with other altered beings. So this is the kind of nonsense that was going on that led to the destruction of the civilization. Eventually, they created a tiny robot that still contained life and consciousness, which was like reducing a body. It took them a long time. They had to figure out a small enough computer part to do it. The lesson is that everything is alive and everything has consciousness, and experimenting with people and objects and animals is not good. It's not good to experiment with animals. They still do that. Section 3, Help from Other Beings. Chapter 9, The Planet of the Blue People. A new session with a man named Tom. At night, he sees himself by a country road. There's fully moonlit area with a horse-drawn carriage. A big house back off the road. The carriage drops a person off, and Tom finds himself in that man's body. He's wearing 18th century clothes. He's middle-aged to early elderly. He's got a doctor's bag with him. He's making a house call, and he's coming to help his own elderly mother. And he lets himself in and he checks, but there's nobody there. He goes to his mother's room, and she is very old. She's in bed. A gray alien, very, very skinny, in the room. There's a gray alien in there. And he realizes his mother has been gone. And she's just been put back in her body. There's a big light outside the window, and he feels that he's met these aliens before. And the being gestures him to a group in the light, and they're coming to check on his mother. They tell him that she's old and her time is running out. He suddenly now is not worried. It's like they put a spell on him. He's no longer freaked out the way he was when he first saw the gray alien. So now remember, this is the 18th century. This happened a long time ago. So he's going up on a beam of light, but his body stays standing at the foot of the bed. And the being stays to watch his body. So this gray alien is guarding his body while his spirit goes up on a beam of light. He feels like he jumped someplace new by rising in the light into a place of dancing lights. He's on a balcony looking at a waterfall. He's in a body, but it's not his doctor's body. He was the doctor. He's in a tall blue body. And he is somebody with authority, and he's looking at a beautiful city of waterfalls, and he's got web fingers, leathery skin. His clothes are just gauzy substance. He's got a heavy gold belt, and he realizes he's a hermaphrodite. And he's some weird combination of fish lizard with a face like a toad. And he realizes now, he understands that he had been in this body of this doctor to feel like a human. He was born to the woman, but his soul was put into her. It was not a normal incarnation. He had a mission. And he might return to the doctor's body, but if not, it's up to him. If not, they'll just remove the body, and that'll be the end of that. His mother died that night. He met her after her death to remind her of her work. She lost her way in her life as a human, and he, as this blue creature, this weird reptilian creature, is meeting with her. He still hasn't decided if he's going to go back. He doesn't need to go back. His body will be transported and taken care of. It will live, but it will live a natural life and die, but his spirit won't be in it anymore. He couldn't be left because they took it and it would be allowed to live out its cell life, but there'd be no spirit in it anymore. And they took it away because it wasn't like a true human body. In the blue culture, it's normal to go for a while and incarnate in other bodies to experience what they're experiencing. And you'll have amnesia while you're doing this. So when he was a doctor in this seemingly human body, he had no knowledge of any of this. If you're on Earth or even elsewhere, the body has to be adapted to handle the different soul energy. On Earth, all souls have amnesia in order to have a normal human experience. But you have many lifetimes on many planets. So he came into this doctor's body for 20 years to help his mother, who was really his sister on the blue planet thing. She'd lost her way because of the negativity of the Earth. Earth is a very hard place to be a good soul. It's a huge, gigantic challenge. It's the biggest challenge. And people get stuck here because of karma. The blue planet they came from was very advanced. Their souls can travel and remain aware of those experiences. Tom, the subject, suffered pain, and it was because in his life right now, he suffered pain because the blue soul self was having trouble with the negativity on Earth. the blue part of his subconscious had much rage about this suffering, and he easily picks up on emotions of beings on earth who have lost their way. So his job is supposed to be helping people by leading them into the new world. And many today can also have this feeling of pain and not know why. And it's because they're not meeting the mission of their soul's job here. So he's here to help people know who they are, to raise their consciousness, and that karma is really important. Gradually, more people are aware of other lifetimes and their purpose and their spiritual direction. So people are becoming more alert about it. Chapter 10, Survival. Peggy, a woman who is in a trance, she's on a barren, hilly trail out of a ravine. She's floating, not walking. It's a desolate scene with no signs of life. She says, I don't feel like a body. I feel like energy, an oblong vibrating mass with light at the center of an oval of energy. She's searching for a cave. She says she was sent here from heaven. She finds crude grass huts with a skinny old man on a cot. He's a hermit. She has come to communicate, to give him information into his mind, and he wants to leave his body, but first he has to go to a nearby village and give guidance. So she's here to tell him that so he can go down to this village. They think the gods are punishing them, and they're full of fear, and they need him to prevent them from turning on each other. It's important they survive because the population is so decreased that the whole planet depends on it. This energy blob, who's Peggy, gives this old man strength and resolve. The original population was there from a different planet. They volunteered, but they weren't flourishing, and they can't contact their home planet. So he goes down and he calms them, and he tells them to move out of an avalanche zone and relocate to the valley, which is better for growing plants and they'll survive. He stays a couple of years to help, and then he can replace his old body with the energy body from the planet of these energy beings. The energy blob, who's Peggy, is from this other planet and is a messenger, kind of like, the angel who comes and gives a message. She's had many lives. She prefers not to have a body. She takes bodies to learn things. She enters them to learn things, but then she leaves again. And because she's a messenger, a completely different form of energy, she doesn't get trapped by karma. People can come to Earth to learn from the drama. And the advice that Canon was given is we should just lighten up. Literally and figuratively. So there are worlds with no free will and no choice, but you still learn. And the free will is that you chose to go there. Then you're there till you learn, and then you move on. Spirit world is different from life on the planet of a spirit, a different dimension, and you can choose to leave it and return to the spirit. You can meet with your guides and consult with them. You can decide what you want to learn and where and who your group goes wherever. To avoid karma, you don't get caught up in the drama. This is not the only reality. So there are choices. You can be in bodies or not in bodies. You can be in the spirit world all the time, or you can hop back and forth. Incarnated as Peggy, the subject came to bring love and light because the earth needed it. Life on earth is hard, and many energy beings really want to be here now for the shift, and this will change the whole universe. It will send dramatic energy waves. Huge numbers are leaving now, as we saw in Libya and Turkey and Morocco. Just mind-blowing. Huge numbers are leaving now because they're making room for these helpers to incarnate. All the disasters are helping to bring us closer to the shift. There will be horrible times and a new earth overlapping. So, got to keep that in mind. Got to keep the perspective. And these worlds won't be aware of each other. The shift will send waves of energy out like flower opening. It would be beautiful. And those on the old earth will not experience this. He'll be at a MAGA rally someplace. It's not in the book. Chapter 11, The Black Hole Energy. A subject named Louise is in a trance, and she says the place she is looks familiar, but it's not Earth. There are buildings that are pink spires made of crystal. On the outskirts, there's very modern houses. The color of the house is reflective of the energy of the inhabitants of the house. People look odd. Oh my goodness, it must have been a long explanation, a long description. Oh, it's a picture. This is how the people look. Right there. Isn't that weird? Okay. But they come from the black hole. So she's one of them. From outside herself, she looks human. From inside her body, she looks like them. She feels that these are her group. She's on Earth to get into information about physics, astronomy, physical things on Earth, how the Earth works, the culture, and about our DNA. And her group runs machinery using black hole energy. They're developing a system to heal the universe in some places, like the Earth, which needs energy healing. She goes back and forth without knowing it consciously to visit her family. It's an honor to be chosen, and when they come here, their bodies at home are stored for their return, like suspended animation or hibernation. And Dolores asks, what are black holes? And she's told, think of the cosmos, space, as a fabric with two ends coming together. The fabric crumbles in the center, and this creates energy, makes it turn, and that creates a black hole. And the pressure caused by the cosmic fabric's energy coming together makes a black hole. It's dense, compressed energy, and her people work with that. It's very dense, very high pressure. Some beings are capable of entering it and carrying that energy. It's a powerful, condensed energy, and they've learned to work with it. They have to have the right vibration to do it. Humans don't understand it. It's not like the pressure as we think of pressure. It's energy pressure. It's a different physics than we can understand. Different black holes have different energy. Different ETs have different vibes too. They're not a portal. That's important to know. Everything is an illusion, and what we see between lives is an illusion, and it's a great central sun, and all of us are drawn back to this great central sun. I'm just telling you what the book says. Chapter 12, Underground. A new subject named Marion is in a trance, and she is uncomfortable. She's in front of a huge oak at the edge of a dark forest. The forest is separated from the ocean by a small area of sand. The ground has been eroded by the sea. The trees are not of this earth. There's no sound. It's chilly and dark. There's no creatures that she can see. She is a red-headed young man in fur with a bow and arrow and a knife, hunting something that's hidden in the forest. The trees have created a tunnel like a cave, and he's searching for something that he'd heard in tales that holds the answer to the survival of everyone. It is equal to a being that has many forms. He's looking for lost information and how to survive the upcoming earth changes. They're expected, they're natural, and we've forgotten how to deal with them, is what he says. His people live in structures disguised as part of the woods. So he finds this being. It's light that can change forms. Finds it at the end of a tunnel, a cave. It's glowing, telepathic, and it gives him small pieces of itself. Bright light that has all the answers in it. Light is coded. He gets home and the change starts, and the earth flips and folds over like a cocoon. And the piece of light must be in the center. It will keep everyone safe. They're being held in the center of the hollow earth ball, and they will be there a long time. This is just what this says. I don't necessarily think I understand what she's talking about, but their cocoon goes into the ground, deep into the ground. It's not affected by the folding. The cocoon is the size of their village, and it will return to the surface when it's safe. The earth has large holes like rooms, lakes, creatures, and secrets inside of it. Like an underground city of book 2 that we talked about. I don't even remember it at this point. It's lit by miniature suns. They have water. They have unknown animals. This has happened before. Too many were going down the wrong direction and not working with each other, and there comes a limit. Canon is told the subject is allowed to recall this because in the present life, the same thing is getting ready to happen. Mankind is wiping out our knowledge of the balance of nature and ourself. It's very destructive energy, and it will threaten our existence. Canon is told these underground cities do exist, and people will find evidence of them eventually. The light the man brought to save them came from the guardians of the earth. The Hopi believe in the present that we have a fourth world, and other 3 worlds were lost by corruption and greed. The first world, the land sank and separated from earthquakes. The second world, it froze from an ice age. The third world, there was a great flood, and before it flooded, they had very advanced technology. And now we're in the fourth world, the world of destruction. The fifth world will be a world of peace. I like that. Now, there's a new subject named Joan in a trance, and she's underground, but it's not under the earth. It's in a different planet. It's barren, alien, red. There's no vegetation. They're red, jagged mountains. She looks at herself, and she looks like a bird, like a crane or an ibis. She's translucent beige and silver, long spindly legs, a teardrop-shaped body, small neck, wings that have alien hands, 6 fingers, including a thumb, the face of a lion, and long black hair. This is an outpost. Many beings are experimenting with energy. There's a huge underground set of dwellings. They're transmuting energy for use all over the universe for positive use. Joan's present job is to learn to anchor or hold the energy. She is like an antenna, a receiver of useful information, love energy to elevate all of our awarenesses. And this section is called The New Earth and the Hidden City. Anita, in a trance, she says it's like a confused dream. She's being taken into the earth for safety against devastation and diseases. After that, she talks to a man who tells her that he came to warn the world, and the world leaders wouldn't listen, and some were able to be contacted consciously and are fully aware of these higher beings, but they don't want to give up their power. Many are negative. They tried to tell them that, these beings tried to tell these inhabitants that they were at a crossroad, that changes would be war, that would affect the earth's vital energy, and that people who are sent to help will wake up to it as the earth changes. More and more people are becoming aware that something weird is going on, and that is why people will have greater and greater abilities to see and do things to help and heal. And the tsunami in 2004, she's told, was not a part of this. It was just a natural event from a natural occurring earthquake. But negative actions by people will cause quakes, tsunamis, and disasters. It's the law of cause and effect, the consequences of our actions. Section 4, the first timers on Earth. Chapter 13, the volunteers. So Cannon was surprised to encounter past lives not on Earth, and then she met a subject, Phil. He was regressed and remembered lives as an alien on other planets, and he was told it was time for us to hear about the seeding of the Earth by aliens. There were many spirits here on Earth for the first time to help. They didn't like Earth. It was too violent. They had difficulty adjusting. They came from a place of peace and love, but they volunteered to come here. They longed to go back home. Phil explained that other regressions that he had were really imprints. The soul needs information in the subconscious about Earth in order to survive life here. Therefore, the soul that's new to Earth will receive the imprints of lives already lived on Earth. No one is ever a clean slate. It's like doing research in a library. It gives the soul unfamiliar with Earth a background to fall back on for survival because life on Earth is so hard. And it comes from the Akashic records. All souls can do this to prepare for the new and unfamiliar life here, role here. Cannon and the subject would not be able to tell the difference between an imprint and a real life experience. The only difference is the imprint is exactly like you live the Earth, you just don't get karma from it. Most people recall being boring, ordinary lives, but more than one has claimed to remember being someone famous. This is an imprint. They learned from that famous life. They didn't live that famous life. Cannon heard from many people globally about feeling out of place, missing home, etc. as she traveled around in her lectures. And she believed there are 3 waves of these people. The first wave, who were approximately in their 40s around the year 2008, born in the early 70s, are having the most difficult adjustment. They're the trailblazers. The second wave were born late in the 80s and early 90s, and they live lives of service, and they don't accumulate karma. They are antennas, channels, directors of energy. They don't want children because children tie you to karma. Do they ever? The third wave, born late in the 90s and the early 00s, their knowledge is already in their DNA. They're prepared. So, subject James had missing time as a child, and in a trance, they go to that time period. He sees himself floating, moving very fast, like he's dematerializing to travel, and traveling in light, like along light. He reformed as a small gray ET, but he knew it was really him inside the ET body. He's being trained about Earth. Information is coming from a device on his head into him. He's got this device put on him. He has a transfer of memory of many lives and life scenarios, getting knowledge and emotion to be able to help people on Earth. He's told he was not ready to remember the missing time. It's not good to get too much information too soon or all at once. It's too hard. James is one of those new souls on Earth. He was imprinted. He teaches by deed, his model, the lives that he lives. He follows the laws of the universe and not man-made laws. His aura and his energy affect others. He doesn't need to preach. He doesn't need to do anything. Just go about leading an ethical life. Said he shouldn't be preaching because the message gets lost in the fervor. The knowledge conducts itself because he is a beacon. So just being near him and seeing him lead an ethical life and being in proximity to his energy is enough. He doesn't have to do anything more. The visitor, Judy. subject put into trance has difficulty adjusting here because she comes from elsewhere, which is a place of love. So the same old story. But it was her job to come here, and the negativity on Earth is polluting the universe. They feel it, and they volunteer to come and help because they can feel the vibe, going down. And people on Earth aren't happy. We struggle every day, and they want to show us peace, that we're one with the Creator. Sadness spreads on Earth, and volunteers found it not easy. They have a much higher vibration. Judy had bad allergies, and her soul, these allergies were her soul fighting to be away from the low energy. More people are awakening. And I must have been in a mood when I got to this part of the book, because in the margin I wrote, okay, so more people are awakening, and I wrote, not to Satan. So Shirley is in trance and in a place of desolation, and everything is gone. There is no life. She cries. Her home was destroyed. She describes a beautiful garden, like she has kind of a human form with male and female energy. She really is she's an energy force. She feeds on beauty. She has a connection to God, man, and nature that keeps her alive. Cannon takes her to the destruction of her home. She sees a dragon and flames in the sky, and everything burns. Some power was jealous and sent the dragon. So, is it a dragon? Is it a war machine? Who knows? She sees the power as a land of giants. The leader was jealous and actually sent dragons, and she left the physical world and went to join the spiritual energy, a ball of light. And her next assignment was Earth, and she's mad about that. But she was born with a sense of a mission, and she's uncomfortable in her body. Her body is a shell for a being of light, and it's difficult adjustment, but she has a job to do to help people. She's shown all this so she can connect with all beings and can heal others. And this says dragons did once exist. I don't remember reading this, but not on Earth. And we have the subconscious memory of other places. And that's why we remember dragons. Beth, subject in trance, is a young man in an Arab market carrying a book of physics, information from a higher source, and his job is to spread this information. He has healing energy. He's unique. He can survive without food and with very little sleep. He's only physical when he teaches. So he's an energy body most of the time that can manifest as a human. He can go into a ship in the sky, which holds 200, and he can go back and forth from the ship to the earth, and looks like an ET when he's not in human manifestation. There is no time. All is simultaneous, and we measure life in teachings and lessons, and he measures it by the number of students he's helped. He teaches and goes back to learn more and returns to Earth to teach it. If one planet is out of harmony, it negatively affects all people on the ship, and the ship helps lots of different planets and people. They eat light, they absorb it, it's all around. He has the appearance of a body when he's teaching, but he's really just energy. He's into a different light, but he was upset at a war. It was galactic. There were many ships out in space between 4 different groups because of miscommunication. Some were full of greed and hatred and not part of his group, and they were fighting over area. He says, I don't want to fight, but I have to. He tried everything else and nothing worked. It's the last resort. They will not negotiate, these other people. This is only the way they know how to resolve conflict, is to fight. Into the future, when they go into the future, the war is over. The bad people are gone. They took their fighting elsewhere. So in another life, he found a new and barren planet. Many planets were working together to bring life to it. They were growing vegetation and moving ahead in time. It had become beautiful. Now they were bringing animals. The animals were on ships. They were raised on ships and brought to the planet. Beth was taken to these lives to see that she's had many lives, just not on Earth, and has had some health issues because she entered the human body too fast, and it will be corrected. And she is here to bring knowledge and to reassure us that aliens are not wanting to hurt us. She should talk to Whitley Strieber. Joanne, in a trance in a beautiful city, finds herself in a beautiful city of crystal with bright lights. She cries because she knows it feels like home. And she says, I just feel like I'm only visiting the earth, that this is my home. I left my home for a mission. I agreed on the plan to demonstrate love, to be available. Earth was a culture shock. It hurts my heart. I had to find people to connect with, and it's important for her to model love, to show people. That was her job here on Earth. Most people are asleep and don't understand that it's okay. It's a part of their journey, and not for us to judge. We're all on different timelines. They spent a lot of time, she did, getting out of her body, drinking to escape, and was literally able to go out and hang in a peaceful place. But so she was disconnected from her human body while being incarnated in a human body. It was very depressing. In 1991, she had a breakdown. She couldn't stop crying. And eventually she found hospice work. And that transformed her. She was able to transmit love with touch and looks, and she says you just be love in that kind of work. So she needs to help because there's going to be a major shift going on for people to wake up through love. She learned to use sound to heal. It's kind of like an angelic language of sound, singing. Canon recalls the part in the Bible about entertaining angels and unaware, and watch how you treat others. So, she does regress or dig back into her Christian upbringing to help her understand a lot of this. But the truth is, you never know who or what you're dealing with. She has a session with a man from England. He had 4 kidney transplants. And has big trouble with catching things because he's immunosuppressant. So he was new to Earth and he wanted to experience everything here all at once, but the energy was off for him and it manifested as bad health, and that explained his condition, which is why he came to her. So I think I'm going to stop here because it's the end of the chapter. It's a good place to stop. I don't like to break chapters up. And I'll be back with another video in a minute here. Thank you for watching. It's very interesting. Some of these stories are really, really mind-blowing, right? Okay. It's long with foil.